Hello and welcome one and all. My name is Daniel. Some of you may have met me before, but my name is Daniel. I'm the head of enrolments here at 4thRev, working in true collaboration with King's College London. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all today as valued potential continuing learners with King's and 4thRev. Obviously, well done, firstly, to you for investigating your further study options through this information session that will cover a lot of the postgraduate certificate in product management with King's College London today. It is a true pleasure to have you. We value lifelong learning, and part of what we'll cover today is an overview of the postgraduate certificate. We will introduce your academic support in Dr. Michael and a learner who has completed the postgraduate certificate as well, with a career outcome that should inspire us all, I'm sure, as well as the nuts and bolts of and structure behind the postgraduate certificate, including entry criteria, application process, timelines, fees, payment plans, all of the above as well. So we'll get into things quite quickly. So I'll give a very brief overview. Naturally, if you have any questions, that's what we're here for. So please use the Q&A function for the questions. We'll put some assets and things like that in the chat function. So Q&A for the questions, chat for all the other things that will go on there. But it's great to see you all here first and foremost. We'll keep it pretty brief, but also be on hand to answer as many questions as you have as well. But I guess a quick background of the philosophy and the vision behind the postgraduate certificate. Part of our shared vision at 4thRev and King's is to find new ways to provide useful and stackable learning opportunities that lead directly to real world outcomes, your career outcomes. The postgrad certificate is one way we're aiming to provide value at all stages of your career by being a natural progression of the learning you've already completed, obviously, in the Career Accelerator, which is of most value to us. It allows you to build on what you've already learned and develop the specialist skills that help you stand out even more, along with a credit-bearing qualification from King's. The time you've already invested in the Career Accelerator will be recognised as a prior learning contributing to the completion of the actual Level 7 qualification. You're able to take your learnings and put them into practical use in an applied project format with an academic supervisor in Dr. Michael, as well as an industry mentor. And distinct from the Career Accelerator, you're two things. You're 100% a King's College London student and learner, accessing to the wellbeing student services, library access, and then become an alumni and reap the many benefits of that post program. But this is different in structure to the Career Accelerator in that it is much more self-paced in its and while supported, obviously, it's not as if you're doing an industry project together as a team. You have the option of applying a project in a workplace or being given a product management scenario in which to apply the learning to. Just very quickly, the structure of the postgraduate certificate contains three components. There is the industry-based project. So what many learners have done previously is complete the Career Accelerator, obtain a career outcome in product, come back and do the postgraduate certificate with the learning or the project applied in their workplace. Others have used it in the other sense that they've been given from our pre-selected number of projects in which you can study to demonstrate to employers your continued learning and value to them through the postgraduate certificate option and obtain a career outcome there as well. So there is the industry-based project. There's also the academic dissertation then that you review the project outcomes from an academic standpoint and highlight the learnings, pitfalls and other challenges experienced from an academic standpoint. And then there's a very short presentation bringing the two together. It is self-paced, however, it's recommended to do it within that 3-month time frame, where you'll also have the opportunity of engaging with not only the support of Dr. Michael and the industry mentor, but each other as well. And that's what it's all about, is further networking, because many of you may have been on a similar intake as on the Career Accelerator, and many of you may not have met before, but have a shared learning in the Career Accelerator previously as well. So we'll get and to do some introductions first. I've got some pre-prepared questions for our panel, if we can go through them, and then I'm going to open it up for the floor for your questions as well. So I'll hand over first I think to Dr. Michael, if I can, and then Kareem for your introductions and a short bit of background about yourself as well. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, Daniel. How are you?
Very, very well. Thank you. Great to see you as always.
Yeah, I mean, I think I say this every time we do one of these sessions, but I love doing these sessions because I love what the Career Accelerator does. I love what the postgraduate certificate does on top of the Career Accelerator, and so I love talking about it, and I love being able to have these kinds of chats.
Excellent. Welcome. Thank you. Your support of our continuing learners is always much appreciated, obviously. Kareem, welcome to you and thank you for your time as well. If you can introduce yourself and give the audience a quick overview of your background and achievements in the Career Accelerator and beyond.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Daniel, and real pleasure to be here today. I was in the sort of accelerator last year and then finished up the graduate program earlier this year, finishing up in May. My background is from a sort of startup background in primarily in health, and I was always focused a little bit more on growth and marketing. So this program, between both the accelerator and the diploma, was really around helping me transition to a role in product. That was my main aim, and that was my main goal. And overall, found it to be a really rewarding process. And happy to dive into any questions further to sort of expand on that.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so kindly, and we'll certainly dive much deeper into that as well as about your outcome and the learnings within the postgraduate certificate as well. So as I've mentioned, the program structure, it's that 3 to 4 months. It is self-guided and self-directed, 100% online. You do structure your own self-directed deadlines around submissions and the like with obviously your supervisor, but ultimately it is up to you to schedule your weeks and the work surrounding that. Scheduled sessions are set by Dr. Michael and the industry mentor that will be available, and preferably between academic hours of 9 to 5, which might at times be a little bit different than the Career Accelerator, but not much. The real world project example is an important consideration. It has been leveraged before in interview to say, I'm doing my postgraduate certificate and I've got an opportunity of applying the learning in the workplace. So there's the ability to demonstrate that there's a productive outcome to your education, to either your current or prospective employer. But again, it's on a case-by-case basis. You will need to run the project by Dr. Michael and the industry mentor to ensure that it meets the requirements of the postgraduate certificate, and there might be some suggestions around adapting it this way instead of have you considered that, or there'll be some not so much negotiation as discussion, and then obviously you get the okay to go ahead then. There's the support obviously from both King's and 4thRev to assist if you're experiencing any challenge. The entry requirements are as follows though, and this is important. I don't think anyone doesn't meet the criteria that's been invited to the session today. So the overall grade achieved in the Career Accelerator, as I said before, qualifies you for entry into the postgraduate certificate. You do need an overall grade of 60% or above. If you're just on that or just below that, we'll discuss it with Dr. Michael and others and take that into consideration. But the other criteria is that all payments for the Career Accelerator must have been completed before applying as well. And you must have your access to your certificate of completion and your transcript to upload into the King's portal for application as well. We do have an application guide that we'll put in the chat, and obviously that's the best way to go through that. But I've got some questions, obviously, for Michael and Kareem. Michael, I guess to yourself first, if I can, what do you feel that learners should consider when undertaking a postgraduate certificate such as this in product management?
So the really important thing about the way that this program is structured is that I think, as you've been saying, it is a very, very self-directed program. It's the kind of thing that you benefit, you get the benefit of what you put into it and the work that you put into it. And I think, I think Kareem is a great example of this. Is that you have learners who come in and who have a real drive and who have a real want to investigate an area, to be able to do work in an area, and it's from that effort that the learners put in that they really get the most out of it. I think, it's throughout the program, we generally schedule meetings, with your academic supervisor, whether it's me or someone else from the department, usually about every 2 weeks, to have a meeting, to check in, to talk about your ideas, to see what you're up to dig into some of the questions you have a little bit. And I think that those kinds of check-ins are really, really helpful for kind of keeping students on track. But it's really up to the students to be thinking about what they're doing, about the way that they're approaching the projects they're working on. Because we're not, as in a kind of supervisor role, we're not there to kind of tell you, yes, this is what you should be doing. This is, you should be doing this first and then this. We have some kind of guidance, but your project is your own. And each project is unique, and each project really requires the individual learner to decide what they want to get out of it. And so I think, for a lot of cases, some of the best projects, not all of the best, but some of the best are the ones that are really involved with people's workplace, and what they're doing, because it's an area that they have a really deep and very intimate connection with, that myself as a supervisor, I'm very much outside of. I have no real relationship to that work environment, but the learner does, and they can really bring that expertise and bring that situation to bear on the project. So to me, it's that commitment to learning, and it's that self-motivation to really do well that I think is really, really important there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kareem. For the audience benefit, and ours as well, can you share your motivations behind commencing and obviously then completing the postgraduate certificate for yourself?
Sure. I think, for me, it was once I'd been through the accelerator and been in a process in a relatively, decent amount of time, so 6 months or so. And again, getting me into a mode of working that I hadn't really done for some time. It'd been a long time since I've been at university and sort of done anything academic. So I think just doing that behavior and going through that sort of whet my appetite for the next stages. And I saw that, this was an option available. And I felt that it was a really nice way to kind of cap off that work that I'd already done, that time I'd already invested, and essentially go that extra stretch further and obtain a sort of a postgraduate diploma beyond that. So that was really the appeal for me. And I felt that I'd invested that time and I really wanted to kind of make the most of it. And I guess I felt that, if I had to start from scratch, maybe doing an entire postgraduate diploma from scratch, it would be a much more lengthy process. So that was it was part inspiration and sort of a whetting of an appetite after doing the accelerator, and part sort of, trying to see a bit of an opportunity to extend my learning beyond that as well.
Perfect. Good to hear. I guess because it is different to what learners and audience members are used to in the Career Accelerator, the supports are slightly different. It's self-guided, but you're not alone. There's the academic supervisor, as I've mentioned, and the industry mentor. I guess, what was the most useful to you about the support that you received throughout the process?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I think I'm just sort of echo sort of what Dr. Michael was saying earlier. I think it is important, if you go into the program, to notice there is a bit of a difference, right? I think with the accelerator, we sort of had this quite persistent cadence, right? We had weekly events, meetings, catch-ups. There was a lot of sort of guidance and sort of, checking in, if you will. I think, as you said, earlier, it is self-directed. And that very much means that the onus is on you, and just being sort of honest and transparent with people. It is a bit of a change from going from the accelerator, where you have that sort of cadence, you have the work you're doing is much more structured, you have smaller pieces of work spread out over a longer period of time. This is a bigger piece of work that you're doing. And you look at sort of, for example, if you're doing user research, or you're doing, you're looking at literature that you're reviewing, the bar there is higher that you have to get across, and you have to be, I think, prepared to sort of tackle that. It is achievable, it is doable, and I think it's just a change in pace. And I found the team, the tutor in particular I worked with, very supportive, and we're able to have very sort of good discussions. And it was by all means always about trying to find how my interests and my sort of perspective could be best supported. I didn't feel any kind of like, no, don't look at that. I felt it was much more like, oh, that's really interesting. This is how you could do it. So I felt it was really, really positive and supportive when that support came through. But I think it is just important to go in eyes wide open that, the onus is on you, and you don't have as much kind of guidance as you did in the accelerator. Then it's just about that reward and that sense of achievement that you get beyond that as well.
That's really well put. Thank you. How will this program, for Dr. Michael, how will this program help learners stand out in the PM field as well?
So for me, there are two big parts of this that I think contribute to making the students really kind of stand out and stand out candidates and very competitive in the field. And the first is the project itself. Is that if you're able to go into an interview, you're able to be in a situation where you're able to talk in a very detailed way about a concrete project that you've done, that you've led from the beginning to the end. I think that's really tremendous, and I think Kareem's talked a little bit. I think it was maybe before we were chatting before the session. He mentioned that being one thing that he found, and I'm sure he could maybe could follow up on that a little bit afterward. But I think that's a really big part of having that project on the shelf that you can point to and say, this is something I've done. This is an area that I know, that I'm very comfortable with, that I can talk about. I think the second part of it is that by doing it, not just as a project, but by doing it in conjunction with a dissertation, it brings you into conversation with a wider world of product management, and it gets you into conversation with the ideas and the concepts that are behind it. And then that allows you then to be able to really talk about these things. And I think that there's something really important about that. A lot of my research right now is about AI and the use of language, and thinking about it particularly in the area of education. And one of the things that I've been really looking at is that way that being able to use language is actually where you find that real power of intelligence. And I think that by having the students write a dissertation, it gives them it kind of forces you to really look closely at what you know, what you think, and then to structure it in a way that is intelligible to other people. So I think that the Career Accelerator allows you to have this project that's developed, and it allows you to as well explain it and to talk about it with people in a certain way. And I think that those are really, really powerful. But I'm actually really interested to hear from Kareem about the way that particularly that project aspects. I think you mentioned that earlier, so I'd like to hear more about that from him.
Sure, no, that's great. My project that I ended up working on was a customer journey map, looking in the health space, which is a space that I'm sort of familiar with. I wasn't doing it specifically attached to an employer because I was actually in the process of looking for a job at the time that I started both the accelerator and the postgraduate process as well. So for me, there was a few different pieces that I found really useful about it. I think one was to have a project that I was working on, a process I was going through to sharpen my tools. And I plastered it all over my CVs at the very top that I was engaged in this process. Obviously, it's got the benefit of the credibility of the King's College name there as well, which I think is useful. And it came up in interviews and conversations. I could speak to it, I could point to it, and that was really useful. And I think just even psychologically, I found it, with the market being as it has been for job seekers over the past couple of years, it can be quite hard if you're, let's say, between roles and you're applying, to feel like you can stand on on 2 feet confidently, and to have this project that you're engaged in behind the scenes where you're going really deep. And I think this was another really important piece that I had to, through the process, go really, really deep in some of the materials and feel that I gained a level of expertise that I probably didn't know, and probably a lot of other people in the product space might not know from a kind of a purely sort of academic or structured basis a lot of the background around some of these elements. So having that work and that process of sharpening my skills and tools behind the scenes was just a really big confidence booster for me going into interviews and speaking with employers. I since managed to get a role at a business in the health space as a product manager. So that happened in May, just before I finished the course, the postgraduate process. And what I found now is that even though I've technically got the job, we all know that those first 6 to 9 months when you're in kind of probation are also really crucial as well. But the news about me successfully completing the process has been something I've been able to share with my boss and CEO of the business. They've congratulated me. They've asked me about what I was working on, and it's a great point to sort of be able to speak with confidence about these things, especially I think if you're not from a product background like myself and you're maybe feeling a bit, imposter syndrome amongst these other kind of product managers who are highly experienced. You can latch onto something that you feel genuinely that you've gained experience and depth of knowledge around and speak about that, and people will be like, oh wow, I didn't really know that about that piece. That's really interesting. You've sort of shared a different perspective on this thing, and I think it just helps you perform better, feel like you can be a bit more confident in the role. And so all of those I found really, really useful. And I think the last thing I would just touch on it is just that from a personal sort of achievement perspective, it was really great to be able to go through that process and just feel like you can achieve these things. And maybe it's a bit of a cheesy thing to say, but it just generally was a sort of a nice sense of personal accomplishment at the back of it, and opening the world to potentially more things to learn in the future. So who knows if I'll maybe be doing a few more of these kind of processes. So we'll see.
Good on you, Kareem. That's a really, really articulate way that you've put that, and the value in which you've been able to talk to it in the workplace, and it follows beautifully from what you said, Dr. Michael. So thank you both. That's invaluable. Just a reminder for everyone, we're going to get to your Q&As very, very shortly. So please pop them in the Q&A box there, and we'll get to your questions shortly. Next, we've gone through the supports. We've gone through how this can help learners stand out. We've gone through the support as well. I guess the overview of the process. So once your application has been accepted and you've been made the offer and you're ready to start, there's a 2-week onboarding process. Just a reminder though that there's a very limited amount of placements that we can accept learners onto. We only have close to around 20 placements available due to a number of factors, but that's the size in which we find it best to deliver the learner experience that you so well deserve. So there are limited placements available. Applications close on the 8th of August and the start date is the 29th of September. There might be some questions around this. I'll check in a moment, but it is a level 7 postgraduate certificate. That means it sits at the same learning level as a master's, but it's not that it qualifies you at master's level. It's postgraduate certificate level, which is generally the first third of a master's, postgraduate diploma being the second third, and master's being the final piece of that 120 odd credits or 180 credits required for a master's, sorry. And then there's a 2-week orientation period. Then you go to a starting point to develop the concepts behind your industry-based project and meet obviously with the team that will support you with that, the academic and industry mentor, to discuss the nuances of your particular project or be given a project in which to do. Then you've got those check-ins, as Dr. Michael mentioned. I think Kareem's had examples where learners have also engaged with each other during this process, be that through different mediums and tools and chats, and a very supportive, self-directed supportive network there as well. You'll have those regular progress check-ins, and then obviously the completion, the final approval, the submission, and the graduation ceremony, which everyone looks forward to, and the benefits that come with being a King's alumnus or alumni as well. Before we move into that live Q&A, and I can see some questions coming through, I've just got one or two other ones. One for Dr. Michael. What's the benefit or difference with being a learner enrolled directly with King's?
I think that we've touched on some of these already. Is that it is a very different mode of learning. The career accelerator. I love the career accelerator. I love the way that King's has partnered with 4th Rev to make the career accelerator work. but it's a very different type of learning in the postgraduate certificate, because it is I think a more robust, and for me, again, I think this kind of goes back to what we were saying a moment ago, is that it's because it is self-directed, because it is connected with your particular interests in your particular area, the kind of learning outcomes that you get out of it are very, very different. I think that's the big part of it. You're also a full King's student when you're enrolled in the program, so you have access to all of the resources and all of the supports that are part of being a student at King's, which I think is really great. And I think that there's something. I mean, I'm slightly biased about this, working at King's, but there's something about the King's name and about being associated with King's that I think that a lot of people find to be a very helpful and desirable thing. It's if you're working with a university that has the international reputation that King's does, I think it opens doors. It's an immediate thing that people recognize and they see, and so that's whenever the university is, and it's part, it's kind of a nightmare for me, because the university is always we need to raise our profile in the rankings and improve those things, which is always a lot of pressure, but it actually does a lot of good, not just for the university itself, but it does a lot of good for our students. Because the better, if we increase our visibility as an international university for the students who graduated 10, 15 years ago, that just improves the value of what they've done. And I think that's that's something not to be discounted, that immediate recognition of it in an international perspective.
It's a very good point, and I haven't looked at this for quite some time, but I know when we were working to establish this with yourself at King's, there weren't many postgraduate qualifications globally available in specifically product management. So we're really, really proud that it's one of the only ones available. I know there is one here in Australia in particular, and there may have been one in North America or so, but I really think we could possibly count on one hand how many postgraduate qualifications there are. There's obviously many short courses and boot camps and things, but this truly sets learners apart. When you think about sometimes it coming down to the small things that are the points of difference in a competitive job market, it can be the difference. I've got more questions, but I do want to obviously get to the audience questions. And I see so many familiar names in the audience, so thank you all. It's great to see your names again, and I'll get through the questions. Is it possible to defer my start date to the next available intake, and what is the process of requesting this? Nefeli, I would assume it is. I'm not sure on the process from King's, but we can certainly take that on advice and come back to you. Sam, if you can make a note of that question. But I guess if you can let me know, Nefeli, if you've applied directly already or you're yet to apply. We only have 2 intakes of the postgraduate certificate per year. One would be early in the year, January, I think the last one was, and obviously this one commencing now. Philip finished the accelerator in June and paid for the course using EdAid. 4th River support let me know that my certificate won't be issued until all 24 payments have been made by EdAid. Does this mean I can't apply for the PG cert? That's correct, Philip. We do need to be financially completed the Career Accelerator prior to applying. It won't prevent you applying moving forward, but if you'd like to take that offline and have a chat directly with me, I'll get Sam to pop in my email address and we'll set up a chat. But yeah, one of the criteria is that you've completed your payments for the Career Accelerator. If there's a way in which you can finish them and the payments and apply now, that's one thing that we can investigate, I guess. But I'm happy to discuss that with you individually, Philip. Marina's asked, hello, Marina. Your name is very familiar. Once we are done with the postgraduate certificate, would we graduate with a master's degree? I'll get Dr. Michael to answer this one. I've already touched on it briefly, but I guess if you can answer that specifically for Marina as well.
Yeah, so the postgraduate certificate is I think it's about 1/3 of a master's degree. So it's at level 7, which is the same level of qualification as a master's degree, whereas a master's degree is 180 credits. This is only 60 credits, and so it's a smaller portion of that. There is, one of the things that is a possibility, but I'm always very hesitant to talk about, is that you can because it depends on institution to institution and program to program, there is a possibility of using these 60 credits that you've achieved through the postgraduate certificate toward a master's degree in another program. But it's again not something that I'm terribly comfortable talking about, because it depends on whether or not other programs would accept those, because they need to match up with the learning that occurred in the postgraduate certificate in product management with the learning that would occur in another program for the credits to transfer over. But there's a possibility of it going toward a master's in the future in a different program. But for this program, it's just a postgraduate certificate as the qualification that is earned.
And I don't know if there's any masters specific in product management globally, but would, I guess, an extension of that question be, Dr. Michael, if a learner found a master's at King's that they wanted to apply for, that they would be given not preferential treatment's not the right word, but this would count in their application towards a full master's in a different discipline, for example, as in not credit, but acceptance?
I mean, I think it would be a good signal to whoever's doing the admissions, but it's not. There's no kind of one-to-one transfer of that in that same way. There's no guarantee, or there's no there. I'm sure there's preferential treatment, but in a very unofficial way that we would see the qualification say it's a King's. You have a King's qualification, therefore we know that it's quality. We know that, versus coming from another university.
Exactly. Thank you, Laura. And I've got a question for Kareem upcoming as well, from Laura. Actually, I'll get through both of Laura's questions. Can you share some of the examples of projects that worked well for this program? Laura, I'm going to ask both Kareem and Dr. Michael this question. Some of the ones that learners have worked on are workplace-based products that are in development, and we can't kind of gloss over all of them, or not gloss over them. We can't divulge those commercial in confidence products that haven't been launched to market as yet, but there's been great examples of them. Michael, have you come across others? And we'll dive a little bit deeper into Kareem's specific example as well.
So I think that I think DC, that's a really good point. I think that one of the things to keep in mind is that when you are working on a workplace project that is your workplace, the thing to understand is, both from the employer perspective, they sometimes want to keep it confidential, but from our perspective, that's totally fine, and it's totally fine for it to be confidential, and that it's only any kind of confidential information that might be part of your project is kept just between your supervisor, the person doing the marking of it, who's usually another supervisor, and yourself. So that is something to keep in mind. And it does prevent us a little bit from talking about too many details. But I had a really, really wonderful project last intake that I was working with a student on, where they were looking at a business that was trying to change their kind of market strategy. And they were trying to change their market strategy within a kind of as a software service company, and they were trying to change their strategy for articulating toward different customers. And so this student looked at, and this was in their workplace, and the student looked at the way that the organization itself that they were working in was able to adapt to these kinds of changes in terms of the objectives of the organization within this particular context. And I thought that this one, it's a very vague description of it. But I thought that was a really great one, because they actually looked at the way that the organization was structured, the way that communication in the organization worked, all around this kind of product that was kind of driving the organization itself. We've had great work that was around developing dashboards and thinking about that in different spaces in terms of kind of a user-centered design kind of product development stream. We've some of the best projects. And these are kind of the projects that I would actually almost not encourage people to undertake. Are ones that are there. You have learners who are so invested in a particular area, in a particular idea that they have, that they kind of do the whole suite. They do customer journey mapping. They do a go-to-market strategy. They do some kind of market testing, and they do the entire thing. And to me, I always discourage students from doing that because that's far too much, and you need to be focused, and you need to limit yourself a little bit. But it's actually really wonderful actually to see those projects where someone's enthusiasm just kind of takes them carried away, and they do this really robust package of a kind of a full product development. But I don't encourage that, and I encourage students to be focused and to be judicious about how much they do in what they should think about. And I think Kareem actually has. I think if I'm remembering his project properly, it was a good example of something that was remained directed and narrow enough, but still pushed the boundaries a little bit in terms of the excitement of what was going on with it. But maybe Kareem, you want to say a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think just as a general note, there were a number of types of projects that were suggested as part of the sort of onboarding materials. You could see different examples, and I felt that was a really nice touch point to kind of help orientate you a little bit about what you wanted to do. I think within the people that I was kind of in a WhatsApp group with, people who were in my own sort of accelerator, we were sort of chatting, and each of us had slightly different approaches. And I think one person in that group had a project a bit like the one Dr. Michael just referenced, in terms of them doing quite a sort of all-encompassing approach. And I think it was their own sort of business that they were looking at, actually. So I focus very narrowly, I guess, in scope around a customer journey map. But even within that, I felt that as I was researching it and looking at the materials and looking at the content, it opened up to sort of different boxes that I wasn't necessarily expecting. I had to kind of make a few adjustments along the way, deal with some of the realities of my research methodologies, that maybe some of them didn't work out exactly how I planned. So I had to kind of adapt and adjust, and that led me down other interesting sort of avenues, and expanded, the breadth of the project a little bit as well. But I think, you'll find familiar areas and project areas, looking at the accelerator as well. So there's things about, go to market, there's customer journey maps, there's sort of SWOT analysis, there's kind of strategic reviews. I think there's a lot there to kind of get stuck into, and for you to find something that you feel a bit more in tune with. I deliberately chose to do a customer journey map because at first I was like, well, I might just do a go-to-market plan, but that felt a little bit too close to what I was experienced doing from a marketing perspective anyway. So I thought, why don't I challenge myself a little bit more and look at a customer journey map, and sort of to answer the question, it helped me both deepen some of the skills that I looked at in the program, the accelerator, as well as definitely uncover new depths and taking a deeper academic rigor around some of those new skills that I was looking at as well. I think the one thing about the accelerator where the benefit of is that it covers quite a few different areas. If we all remember kind of week to week, module to module, there's a few different areas that you're looking at. You're not really going super deep in one particular area, which is just the nature of the beast. But the benefit of the postgraduate is that you can really just take one of those things and go as deep as you like, if you so desire. So I think I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think there's plenty of options, and when you discuss it with a tutor, you actually find that back and forth is really productive and really helpful. And them just guiding you and giving you a bit of a sense of, that could work, or might you look at it from this perspective, or maybe you might consider that. So all of those pieces I felt to be a lot less intimidating and difficult than I sort of perhaps was worried about initially. So
that's great. That's really good to hear. And someone's asked, and I'm going to get to your other question, Jason and Laura, in a moment, but someone's asked, do we choose a project or are we given a project? You have a choice if you have a workplace in which would support the application of learning to a particular topic in the workplace, obviously, if you've got a career outcome in product already, or have an organization that would be willing to do that. Or if you don't, you will be given a suite of options as to projects to choose, and as Kareem did, best choose one that suits your intended outcome. So the second question to that, if you are from a completely different background such as pharmacy, how do you choose a project to work on? Well, you consult with your supports first and foremost, and even identify your intended outcome, and from the projects that have been pre-designed to assist you with that, you can select the one that's going to help you gain traction either in a particular field or a particular discipline within product, as Dr. Michael and Kareem have just mentioned, giving you a greater chance of obtaining your intended career outcome as a result. Now, I love this, Jason. I'll touch on yours first, actually. Jason, Are we able to apply for postgraduate course in 2026 if we decide right now isn't the right time? I've got two ways in which I'm going to broach this. I'm going to ask Kareem something about that in a moment. But Jason, the only reason you wouldn't be able to potentially is that if you finished a career accelerator more than 2 years ago. Is my understanding, Dr. Michael, that if there's a 2 year window in which to, between the completion of the career accelerator and then the expiration of being able to apply for the postgraduate certificate, given the currency and the change in curriculum and things like that that do occur from time to time. But Kareem, my question in relation to Jason's question to you is there's all sorts of barriers that get in the way of people committing to things, and we have empathy for any that may come up, but time is often one that is the biggest consideration. Compared to the career accelerator, what was it like for you as a time commitment on an average week, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, this sort of fluctuated, right? I think I had moments where I probably had to knuckle down a bit more, and probably had a few weekends where I was my wife and daughter went out somewhere, and I stayed at home sort of crunching away, and a few evenings when I probably had to put a bit more time. I will say that one thing that was quite useful is there is a guideline when you start the courses around where you should sort of try to aim to be with your different sections of work by which point in time. And I think if you can hit those milestones quite well, you shouldn't really get too overwhelmed. So I think on an average week, I would say, maybe sort of 4 hours, something like that, 3, 4 hours. I think I was finding myself doing. It did fluctuate a bit more in some of those points. And I think in my particular case, I had a bit of a problem with some of the research I was doing, and I kind of had to change direction quite quickly, which sort of added some of the sort of time frame. But I had one person in the kind of smaller student group to me who was like they finished the project like 2-3 weeks before the deadline. So it is possible to do that. It might be a little bit my personal style. I'm maybe not quite as organized as some other people in terms of allocating a perfectly sort of symmetrical amount of time every week. But I think in the end it wasn't too bad. And the good thing is that you're not going to be having as much time doing the sort of calls as you would have done in the accelerator. Those are much fewer and far between and much more self-directed. And you can actually do a lot of the back and forth via email. I found with my tutor, a lot of it was kind of actually email based. And so I didn't have to take that extra time in the day for like jumping on a call as much as in the accelerator. So, if you're happy to allocate, an hour or so an evening, most nights that, you're free, then I think that's, plenty of time to get it done. So that was my experience at least.
Yeah, well put. And I guess the key takeaway there is continuous momentum rather than letting self-paced, I'll take a couple of weeks off. Well, it snowballs quickly.
I think that's a really key point, Dan, just not to lose the momentum. I think it is a much bigger piece of work, right, than what we did in the accelerator. I wouldn't say by like dramatic amount, it's not like 10 times more, that, but it's probably equivalent to a few of the accelerator projects pieced together. But it is a bit more, the structure is a bit more different. You have to try and adhere to academic standards. You have certain ways the sections of your work is structured. You have an artifact that you have to develop, which is separate to the dissertation, and you have to be mindful around getting that together. You also have to be looking at your references, which is we did do in the accelerator, but it's taking to a slightly more formal and academic level in this, and that you're trying oftentimes to find references to support and corroborate what you're saying. So there is a bit of planning and forethought that you need to do. And I think if you do your research in the right phase and you look at your sort of when you're going to do your artifact and do that well, and then sort of map things out, plan them out, it should be very achievable.
Well done, Laura. I love this question. I've saved it for last for that reason. One for Kareem. Did you feel that the postgrad helped you solidify the skills you learned as part of the accelerator, or was it more building new skills on top of what you've learned?
Yeah, great question. I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I would say again that it was probably a bit of a combination of both. I think it helped me solidify a lot of the skills that I overviewed in the accelerator, but then on some things, it really allowed me to go much, much deeper. For example, for myself, I was looking at customer journey mapping. And because I had to try and look at the research and the literature to back that up, I ended up looking at, going back decades of history of customer journey mapping, looking at the different nuances, where people challenged the model, where people sort of updated the framework and the approach, and that gave me some confidence to actually even sort of have a bit of a new perspective on it as well. So I think, definitely touching on a lot of the other pieces that I did previously, but because of where I was focused on, really going deep and feeling even now, in a team of product managers, that I feel like I've got really good insight around that particular framework that I can even help, share with other team members and look at that confidently. So, really worthwhile and definitely sort of touching both areas. And, it might be more extensive if you take a bit of a more sort of all-encompassing approach, although I know Dr. Michael suggested not to do that. But I think for me, it was definitely enough to kind of go deep in this one section. Maybe I need to do another project in the future and go deep in a different section. So
Fantastic. That's all the questions, unless someone pops. Oh, there isn't one more. Sorry, that's just popped in. Let me check. Good question. Laura, what are the requirements of the dissertation in terms of word count? Have you got that handy? I know I can dig it up, Dr. Michael, but do you have that handy? Or Kareem, do you recall what that was?
So it's there because of the nature of this work, where you have this product or artifact, or project or artifact that you develop, and the written dissertation itself. We're looking for, and of course the very short presentation. But the rough idea is that we're looking for around the equivalent of 8,000 words shared between the artifact and the dissertation. So generally, what I say, and it's all very, case by case situational. But we look for generally about 4,500 words for the written dissertation is I think the rough guideline that we put forward. But that really depends on what the artifact that's developed out of the project looks like. And there's a lot of wiggle room. We had one student who did a really tremendous. And this was again one of those students who was overly motivated, which is you love to see. But they had written about, it must have been about 12,000 words for their dissertation, and we actually had to say, that is too much. You have done too much there. But that's usually not an issue. But usually around 4,500, 5,000 words for the dissertation itself, and then the artifact, the equivalent of 4,000 words, but that depends on what the artifact is, how kind of illustrated it is. So I think if I'm thinking back to Kareem's project, you had developed I think you developed a number of different personas that went through a customer journey.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, they're actually pretty heavy in terms of the amount of detail that was in there. But it can be really variable. It's all about negotiation, and it's all about kind of checking with your supervisor along the way to say, does this seem right? Does this seem like the right kind of approach that I'm taking here in order to meet the requirements?
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think when you think about that compared to what we've done in the accelerator, it's not 10 times more, right? I think it's achievable. It's not, massively overwhelming. I think the approach that I took is that I kind of split it relatively equally, and I was able to do that because my artifact in and of itself, was a customer journey map. But as part of that artifact, I sort of explained the artifact in more depth to give a bit more detail around it, and then the dissertation was more looking at like the background, what I was researching, what did the literature say. So they kind of ended up marrying up quite well in that sense, and I didn't find it sort of especially sort of a struggle to be like, oh, how am I going to get an extra 1,000 words in here? Like, I think by the time I went through and explained things, with the artifact, and then gave my background of research and looked at literature, there was plenty to sort of meet that requirement in a sensible way. So again, we're not talking like 25,000 words here, right? It's 4 and 4, or maybe a split. And the tutor is really helpful to guide me around, like, maybe that would be better placed in your artifact versus that might be better placed in the dissertation. So yeah, it was certainly achievable in the end.
Perfect. Thank you. Before I say a big thank you to you both, I'll just recap everything for the audience. First and foremost, this is only open to alumni of the Career Accelerator. It's part of the entry that you've completed the Career Accelerator, so no one external to that can apply. It's £2,000, and there is the upfront option, or split the £2,000 into two equal payments. Application deadline is the 8th of August. There's only 20 placements available, and the start date is the 29th of September. It's 4 months, 3 to 4 months self-paced, as Kareem mentioned, and it's a level 7 postgraduate certificate specifically in product management. And the qualifying criteria, as I mentioned, that you've completed the Career Accelerator with a grade of 60% or above, and if you have paid out your loan or the Career Accelerator. However, I am going to speak with the individual that posted that question earlier and see where they're positioned and how we can support you. And if you need any discussion that is specific to yourself, please reach out to me. My email address has been posted in the chat, and I'll come back to you. And also, there's a Typeform pre-application guide that's been linked in the chat as well, where you'll go through and you understand what documents you need in place to then upload into the King's portal to receive your offer and continue your learning journey in what has been an amazing ride for many, including our special guest today, Kareem, and overseen by Dr. Michael, who we very much appreciate both of your times today, and hearing your outcomes, Kareem, are an inspiration, and Michael, your passion for this is unwavering, and we much appreciate both of you today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daniel. I think, for me, this is something that I hear from every supervisor who works on these projects, is that working with the students who are coming out of the Career Accelerator on their projects is always a joy, and it's always something that we love to participate in. Some other types of supervision, sometimes people say, I don't really love doing that kind of supervision, but every time someone does supervision with people working coming out of the Career Accelerator, they love it. So I really look forward to being able to work with some of you in the future.
That's great feedback. Thank you. I hadn't heard that before, so that's really, really refreshing to hear. Thanks, Kareem. And thank you, Sam, in the background as well. We look forward to continuing to celebrate your outcomes, support you on your learning journey, and if there's anything we can do to assist, please reach out. But we'd love to receive your application, get it through the King's process, get the offer, and get you continuing learning. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Best of luck, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.